Good morning, everybody, from Riga. Today is round 5 of Riga Technical University Open 2024. With you, once again, will be Women International Master Anna Kantane.
And Grandmaster Tom's Kantāns. Welcome everyone. Today is such an interesting day because 2 rounds await us, and that means we are going to cross halfway of the tournament, but then also 2/3 because round 6 is going to be played today afternoon. Very important day for the players because 2 rounds can change so much. Very, very exciting. You see now the playing hall, the players. It's a morning round, so they are probably slowly waking up and warming up, but some of the games are already on in quite an advanced opening stage. So let's jump to the results of the yesterday to sum up for you what happened. It was very interesting because we had a lot of leaders yesterday, but now the situation on the top has narrowed down quite a bit. So let's see the
result of yesterday, yes, and as we can see, there were lots and lots of draws, especially on the very, very top. So we saw only 3 results till games among the people who had 100%. And what is interesting, there were no Grandmaster victories in this group. So right now, only international masters, the ones who are maybe the most ambitious because they're fighting for the norms, they're fighting for the rating points, still to prove something more.
Is that how it was for you? Were you more ambitious as an international master than a grandmaster?
I think I was different sort of ambitious. Yes, that is, there was always this hunt, there was an extra factor that was motivating you. And afterwards, it's just about the result, about the standings, but not so, you don't have this very, very direct goal that you need to achieve. And that certainly helps to motivate you. So right now we have 3 people: Giral Josep, who won yesterday with white pieces against Pierre and Kacper by playing very, very nice game, very strong game. Pajek and Jacob Leon, who won also very, very clean game with black pieces, just slowly outplaying his opponent. And then also Rohit Krishna, who won a very, very quick win with a very aggressive approach, punishing his opponent for playing somewhat anti-positionally. And so also a great, great win there.
And that, I think, was the most instructive game, especially for viewers who are maybe on a little bit lower level, because really, as Tom said, it was anti-positional. Pieces went to the side, king stayed lonely, and we had a very nice sacrifice to get to this king. So yeah, that game was really cool. And now we only have 3 leaders with the perfect score after 4 rounds. Let's see, after today, I think this is a big question, if after today's morning round we will have anyone with a perfect score. So I guess we can see the standings after round 4 to just see exactly how is it there in the top. Joseph Girel, who was playing this very, very nice clean game yesterday with white pieces, caused the biggest upset of the round because he won with the second seed. So he is first one. His tiebreak is the best, but of course for now the tiebreaks can still change quite a bit. So now we have 3 leaders with a perfect score, and then a lot of players. As you can see, 16 players with 3.5 points. So still anything can happen.
And of course, let's not count out also people in the group with 3 out of 4 points. They are also still fighting for the first place in the tournament. Probably if you're on 2.5, your chances to win a tournament are only theoretical at this point. So 1.5 point lost after 4 rounds probably means you have worse tiebreak, and even if you do well, you are not gonna win the tournament. But yeah, people in the points with 3 points, if they have a great finish, they can still be winning the tournament. And you see a lot of grandmasters also in this group, a lot of strong players. And that group is very, very big. So nothing is clear in this tournament.
Yeah, it's scrolling and scrolling, and there are still people with 3 points. We also have Josephine Heinemann there, Margaret Olde, so female players there as well. So yes, the tournament is really exciting because we have 150 titled players here. 19 of them are grandmasters, but none of those players with the highest title is now sharing the first place, so really anything can happen. And 2 rounds today, so it's going to be really exciting. Let's see the pairings, and let's see what are we going to be focusing on today. First board is certainly very interesting, as well as the second one. And I think third one also, because on the third board we have Jakub Seman from Poland, who is the current world champion under 16, and he's facing the top seed of the tournament with white pieces, so it can be also quite tricky, especially if he has managed to prepare something nice. Let's see, do you see any other games that could be particularly interesting, Toms?
I actually think that everything that we see on top 10 boards can be potentially fighting chess, because there is the group of people who are like looking to catch up with the leaders. And while those who are in the lead, they can afford to play a little bit more safe, but if you are a little bit lower, you gotta go for it. You gotta go for the wins and try to catch up with the leaders. And yeah, so 3.5 point group. So there we also see a very, very even matchups. A lot of high-rated players. And actually, if we continue with this theory, in the group with 3 out of 4 right now, all the Grandmasters who are higher rated playing with against low rated opponents today, they want to win in the round 1. For sure, this is like the only acceptable result for them. So actually there could be also some very, very explosive games, some nice sharp ideas to be seen. And yeah, so we'll try to keep an eye on all of the boards, mainly focusing on the leaderboards, but if you see some great games, then you can also let us know in the chat, and we'll try to look at them once we see the message.
Exactly, because today we can say hi to all the viewers who are on the main website of the event, but also the streams go on the Twitch, so we see the chat messages as well, so you can let us know. And now, without, I think, further ado, let's jump into board number 1. 2 of the leaders of 4 out of 4 are battling each other. Let's see, are they in a fighting mood from the morning, or is it more of a calm game? There we have it. Those are the players.
Yeah, so the players are very, very focused, and I guess if that would be the question for me to assess if they are in a fighting mood, then I guess they are in a mood to play risk-free. So especially as it's often as the white pieces are determining the character of the game. So player with white pieces can choose if he's gonna go for some sharp game, or he's gonna try to play safe for some very, very small advantage thanks to the white pieces, and that is what would the best characterize this game. So player with white pieces has chosen to play it safe. As already we are in an endgame with queens exchanged. There is a slight pressure on the pawn on d5 because there are no other pawns that can be defending it. Yet black is very, very comfortable for now defending the pawn with a bishop. Of course, that is also not ideal because bishop wants to breed, wants to play, wants to roam the board, and in this case it's just stuck to defending the pawn, so black doesn't have any ambitions in this game as of this point, just to win it. So for now it's just about playing it out and not really giving anything too much to the opponent.
But I think this must have been what the white player was intending, because on the clock for him it's 125, not 125, but 1 hour 25 still. Players start with 90 minutes, so he only spent a couple of them. Meanwhile, black is already down to 58 minutes, so probably this is something white wanted today. He is slightly lower rated, but he is pushing clearly for this isolated pawn endgame. If you were playing with white pieces, how would you be evaluating your chances for the win?
If I had never seen this position or structure before, I would feel quite ambitious about being able to grind it out. But if we actually check the database for this kind of pawn structure, and maybe even for this exact position, there are quite a few examples shown by Grandmasters of level 2700 and plus that this is actually a very, very comfortably drawn position from the black side.
Alright, so most likely it's the type of position that there is only one weakness, and usually in chess you need two weaknesses. There is even a rule: when you're realizing the advantage, you need to create two weaknesses, because if there is only one thing, then you attack it, your opponent attacks it, and it's kind of both sides are kind of frozen. And so usually to win you have to create a second weakness, maybe a second weak pawn that you can attack, or maybe your own strength can become a weakness for your opponent. So let's say white manages to create a passed pawn somewhere on the h file. That could be a weakness, because then your opponent has to look at two things, has to manage the pawn and your passed pawn. But here it's really difficult to imagine that white could manage to do it, but he should try somehow. But what is the try here?
The try, yeah, that is a good question. We want to attack the d5 pawn somehow, and I guess that is also what he should be looking for. So ideally, I guess we would want to put the knight on f4 or on c3, where it can be attacking the d5 pawn, while in the same time blocking the pawn, that it cannot be advanced, cannot be exchanged, because at the moment we need to keep the knight on d4 to make sure that there are no pawn exchanges happening. And yeah, but that would be the ideal scenario. And of course, black player is here not gonna be just sitting and waiting for white to do it, and he has a knight which can be jumping around and always harassing white's rooks, not letting them to settle down on those squares, and maybe also attacking the pawn on b2. If it goes forward, then we have some entrance squares with a rook on the third rank. So it is actually very, very hard to say such a clear plan. Well, I guess it's a long-term game that we are waiting to just be improving slowly the pieces, maybe looking to take some more space on the king side with some pawn moves, bringing the king on the center, which was already just started with king f1, because it's an endgame, and in an endgame we want the king to join the game to have to work as a reinforcement there. And yeah, the best strategy I would say is to play with keeping as many pieces on the board as possible, and to try to force your opponent into time trouble. So here he has an extra half an hour, and if he could reduce black's time still in half during the next 5-10 moves, then maybe he would be able to play for some practical chances.
Yeah, I think that could be, and also sometimes testing your opponent's patience, right? Because there are players with different styles, and of course, usually the bigger the level, the more diversity we see in each of the players. But still, for some, it could be very difficult to just play this position as black and just stand patiently. Maybe he's going to try to force things and thus create or help create another weakness for himself. So we'll see how it's going to develop. And let's see, board number 2. We have the third person with the perfect score on this board. Joseph Girel, who is actually first in terms of the current standings, and he is playing with Chong Shang Zheng, who yesterday won in such an incredible manner. Actually, you could take a look at game 4 that he played with Agraval Vantika, because that was just something else. We thought there is no way that there is going to be a resultative finish to this game. There had to be a draw, but he found so many chances, and finally Vantika, despite defending so well, she fell into one of the tactical ideas in the end game. So yeah, it's actually very interesting how he was just fighting, and he kept on in a seemingly hopeless position to win, but he managed. So let's see this game.
So yeah, and that's also a good, I think we can assume that he's in a fighting mood in this tournament. He doesn't want any draws, any easy games, and I think we could see that also here today, that even though we have reached another endgame kind of position, but this one is somewhat different. So here we have again the same battle, knight against bishop, that we are seeing in so many games in this tournament. And as we were already speaking about it yesterday, that is one approach how often grandmasters or stronger players are trying to outplay somewhat lower rated opponents. They are trying to create some sort of material imbalance, in this case knight against bishop, and that gives them some maneuvering room, some more maybe complications, more need to understand the position better, and yeah, that can force some mistakes out of the opponent. And here we have rather passive bishop on c8. So both sides have nice bishops. So the bishop on c5 is very strong, bishop on f3 is very strong, and here white is playing for the idea that their knight is stronger than the bishop on c8. Bishop on c8, which is tied down for now on defense for the b7 pawn due to the bishop attacking there. And now after knight a4 we have some ideas connected with knight a5 and actually putting direct pressure on the pawn, control of the d file. Maybe we'll be soon playing b4 to ask bishop from c5 to choose where it wants to spend most of its game, in which direction. So yeah, some very practical questions are being asked, and that's why we also see Josep already thinking more than 10 minutes on this move, because it's not easy. It's not easy to make the decision how you're going to set up the pieces for the rest of the game, especially with the kind of pawn on b7. If you're not careful, you can end up in a situation where you simply do not manage to develop your bishop from c8, and in that case, the biggest issue is that we don't get a rook in the game.
Yeah, and this bishop exactly is holding the whole queen side. It's interesting because the eval bar is equal, says it's more or less equal, but in a practical game, for now at least, it seems that white has a really good position, good chances, and black has to solve the issues. And we see him, he's sitting by the board, and he's just trying to find a way how to avoid real problems here, because maybe for now we don't have real problems, but he needs to find some reasonable way how to get out with the pieces from the queen side. Maybe rook b8 has to be played.
Yeah, rook b8 of course is the most obvious approach. So we remove the rook from the diagonal of the bishop, we free our bishop from c8, and in case something like knight a5 would get played, we do not need to develop this bishop immediately. So first of all, we have an option now to go simply bishop b6 attacking the knight, and if knight does go back, we can even choose to put bishop on c7, now being already ready to play b5 with 0 squares for the knight on c4, and meaning that this bishop gets out. So rook b8 is probably the best move in this position. At least that would be also intuitively the first move that we are calculating here, because any other lines do not seem to be so logical, let's say that. Since we are still kind of in an opening stage, we want just to finish development of the pieces. Could try to take some space on the king side, but moving those pawns e5 or f5, it's a big decision, because we don't know which square we do feel comfortable to give to the opponent. If ever we play e5, we give up d5 square, and the knight could sometimes regroup there, which would be very dangerous. And if we do play f5, then we give up at least one more maneuvering possibility for the knight through e5, and rook b8 is actually played.
Oh yeah, it just happened. So we managed to guess. And now, what way can white try to cause maximum trouble?
I think we could also see a4 being played as one of the moves here, just trying to get space on the queen side, controlling more and more squares, potentially pushing a5. And ideally, we want to lock down the pawn to b7, that it will never leave b7, so that would mean that one piece for the entire game will need to defend it. Of course, in this case, black is free to move the pawn.
What about bishop d7? And if you go a5, rook h to c8, and I just want to bring my bishop to c6, because white's bishop on f3 is very good. That's this annoying bishop that is attacking b7 and causing us all this trouble. So if we can manage to exchange it, that should improve our position.
Yeah, certainly that would be great, because we would stay with a good bishop against the knight, so that is not a bad setup at all. All the pawns would be on the dark squares, meaning that we have targets for our bishop. But I think that his idea, like the idea here after bishop d7, could be connected with something like knight a4, and actually asking some direct questions on the b7 pawn. And if
b6?
And if b6, I would even consider these sort of endgames. It looks very close to equality, yet the pawn structure is somewhat worse for the black on the king side, and this might be one of those different colored bishop positions that we can play for a long time, since we will always be managed to play b4, but he chose a different approach, so he decided to immediately ask questions for the bishop on c5, forcing it back to a7.
Maybe now knight a5 is a tricky move, because you don't really allow bishop d7 to be played, because we are attacking the b7 pawn already with 2 pieces, so now knight is attacking and bishop, and you just want to go bishop b6.
And I want to just go bishop b6, exactly. And now I would like to, let's say we make an empty move like king f1, my idea would be just to exchange it and maybe play even b6, so that would be the game for equality. But I could as well be looking just to play bishop d7, rook c8, rook c7, or take on c3, or attack on a5. And I think black should be rather comfortable.
Yeah, if white had like one additional move, like some rook on b1 or rook on d2 already to be able to double the rooks and somewhere, you know, drive to the d7 square. But maybe it is still possible for black to simplify the position in this setup.
An extra option that we now get after bishop being on a7 is knight coming to d6 in some instances. So perhaps we can just play a move like a4 at the moment. And if you do go for bishop d7, we could consider playing knight d6, attacking the b7 pawn. In this case, not allowing rook coming to c8. And if we ever want to defend it with b6, that would be, of course, very, very bad, considering that our bishop on a7 is completely locked out. And we are not able to go also b5, because bishop is going to still be hanging on a7 after we capture on b5. So this could be some idea, and playing bishop c6 is a very, very hard decision, because you doom yourself to defending a very, very uncomfortable pawn structure for the entire game, since now those 2 pawns on the light squares, if they ever get attacked, they can be defended only by the rook, which is not ideal. And yeah, next move could be something like knight retreating to c4, then bringing the king over to e2, and when we are ready, just looking to target those weaknesses. So I'm actually not sure what could be the best approach here from the black side. Maybe there's some tactical solution allowing to take on b7, but getting some direct threats against white pieces. But on the first glance, I don't know what is the idea, what could be the move, because knight f7 is also another threat, using the fact that bishop on d7 could be hanging.
So you just played, in a live board, we just had b4 and bishop a7. So you just want to go a4, claiming maybe black has to go rook d8. No, it doesn't help, because we exchange rook d1 and knight d6 comes anyways.
Yeah, and it's like we won a tempo, almost.
And those pieces for black, they are like in a little private party, but I don't think this is what you necessarily want.
Of course, right now we have an option to attack the a4 pawn, which does help to develop the pieces, and there is no pressure with the rook along the a file, so that actually could work out. It could actually work out pretty nicely and force a lot of exchanges, and every exchange of pawns in this position is nice for black, since when we are defending, pawn exchanges usually make our life more easy. Especially if you exchange the pawn, which was the weakness, the one that we needed to defend. And a5 is a kind of move that I don't really want to make, because we commit all our pawns to the dark squares, and that means that whenever, as long as the bishop from on a7 is still in the game, we will have some problems, some need to defend those pawns at some point.
Yeah, if ever bishop manages to attack the c3 pawn, you see this chain. The chain could simply collapse as well. Wow, that is actually interesting. That for black, it could be better and not to have white's rook on a1 to be able to put pressure on the a4 pawn. There are so many small differences in chess. It felt like white just brings a piece for free to the game, but maybe it is better for the rook for the time being to be on a1. By the way, I just need to mention on my Twitch channel, thank you so much for all the subs. Thank you everyone, and welcome to all the viewers once again who are slowly tuning in. It is really nice to see you. It's a very exciting day. Remember, we have 2 rounds today, and a lot of action throughout the whole day is going to be here in Riga Technical University Open. We have endgames on first 2 boards. Let's see maybe what is happening on board number 3. Is there another endgame happening on the 3rd board? I already know the answer.
Yes, let's see the board number 3, where we have top seed of the tournament, Theodoro Nicolas, playing with black pieces against Seman Jakub. And yeah, so again, I think it was simply chosen a safe approach from the player with white pieces, going for an endgame, which is very, very, very slightly more easy to play maybe for white, but it's still a rich game because only the queens have been exchanged, and we still have a lot of pieces to work with.
Queens and knights, so 2 pieces. You see this slightly strange structure for white. There are doubled pawns on the G file, and when we first kind of start exploring pawn structures, we learned that doubled pawns are a bad thing. In this position, actually, those doubled pawns are quite a favorable thing for white, because white has an open file for the rook, so rook is more active, already attacking the h7 pawn, and those pawns can get quite a lot of space. For example, by pushing g3 pawn to g4, they can roll forward. Also, black doesn't really have a way to attack them. So queens, when they were exchanged on this g3 square a couple of moves back, that was specially intended by white to go for the structure and to create this slight activity and pressure on the king side.
Yeah, and the thing is that we never managed to relieve the pressure with moves like h5, because the g4 would follow anyways and use the pin against our rook, and in this kind of scenario we would always have to keep a piece there to defend it. But if we would ever get a castle, and then we would manage to play h5 without any pressure on the g file, then the white's doubled pawns actually could become a issue. So white will be are required at some point to play g4 for sure in this this position, this game. But here actually he chose to take on b5. Wow, that is a very surprising decision, since it opens up the game for black pieces.
Because you usually kind of prefer to keep the pawns on a6 and c6, and if black takes on c4, even if for the time being the pawn is captured, it could simply be probably won later, and black destroys their own queenside pawns. So yeah, usually you keep it. You don't also want to play c5 because probably knight d7 is going to put some pressure on the c5 pawn.
And I guess rook b8 is the move that simply kind of scared him, because knight a4 won't be that effective anymore, as there will be some moves like rook b4, and he was not entirely sure how he's gonna recapture the pawn back. But this exchange right now is, yeah, for sure very favorable for black, and after we capture with a pawn, we want to take with an a pawn to keep control with the c pawn over the d5 square. Also now we are very ready to play b4 and take on a2, causing a lot of trouble for white, and I like black's chances all of a sudden. If without capture, I thought that yeah, a takes b is taken immediately without any thought, and
also immediate answer. So
b3. Okay, not a3 but b3.
So Jakub Seman prepared it already when deciding to capture on b5. Now he wants to play b3, but what else? King b2. Will he try to bring his rook to the c file to put pressure on the c6 pawn?
I don't think we can manage to do that. So first thing, I want to develop my bishop with a check, and to bring us rook to the c file, we'll first need to get rid of the bishop.
Yeah, so king b1 probably would be played.
And now the question is, do we play king e7 or do we castle? There's actually a very important decision. I guess king could stay in the center since it is an endgame.
Normally you would prefer king on e7. Yeah, exactly, because in the endgame king should be in the center. In this position, sometimes this king on g8 could actually be helpful to defend this h7 pawn. But okay, let's try king on e7. It looks more logical and active. White goes something like g4.
Yeah, g4, I'm not convinced about this move because I think h5 now that the rooks are connected is actually very, very strong. And we have some problems to solve because if we do play g5, knight simply retreats to d7 and h5 pawn is kind of strong, and I'm not so sure that we benefit from having pawn on g5. Now also we have knight coming through c5 or bishop coming to c5. Knight is ideally placed on d7. There will be no checks on c5, so we are free to play moves like b4 also in time, and c5, c4 could be coming against white's king. So I am not certain. And yeah, and if we do exchange here, again, I do like the chances for black because we can just take with a knight, and knight g3, knight f4, both of those are coming in very, very strongly and asking some uncomfortable questions for the bishop on f1. And yet, if we do not play g4, then we could end up with h5 on the board at some point, and those doubled g-pawns actually could become a weakness.
Yes, this endgame is very promising. There could be still a lot of action, but for now it seems that black is controlling all of the crucial squares in the center. It's difficult for white pieces to go somewhere forward. Maybe the a file will be used by black to create some pressure on the a2 pawn. I guess we both prefer black now, right?
Yeah, well, this is very close to some of the positions that I like to play, that I have been playing from the black side, and yeah, black has managed to get everything they want for the lines where white do go queen g3 and exchange the queens over there. So that's why it just feels like we have the ideal Sicilian endgame happening right now from the black side.
Well, but it is the top seed of the tournament playing with the black pieces, Nicolas Teodorou, over 2600. You see, this is still quite a big rating difference. He has a very big class, but let's see. Jakub Seman, I'm sure he has some ideas here. He is a current world champion under 16. So he for sure will still surprise us with some of his ideas. But meanwhile, bishop a3 was just played. That's what we were expecting. And let's see how it's going to develop. Shall we take a look at the next game?
Yeah, so meantime, already boards 4 and 5 have finished in a draw. So Simon Lamaze made a draw with white pieces against Altay Safarli. They played out, I guess, a lot of theoretical moves, simplified, exchanged all the minor pieces, and were left in very, very equal endgame. And on board 5, there was not much of a game. Thomas Laurushas with black pieces seems to have offered the draw against Hassan Selik. And one way to explain it, I guess, would be, for those of you who don't know, Thomas Laurushas yesterday had a very, very tough game. He was much better the entire game. At some points he was completely winning, and then he messed it up a little bit. He had to defend the game, and he finished his game very, very late. I mean, we finished the broadcast, we were already at home, and he was still playing.
Yeah, this was a really long game, and not only long, but as Thomas mentioned, it was a roller coaster. And he also had in the previous day, on Tuesday, we had double round as well. He had some very long battles, so maybe he was just a little bit mentally exhausted from yesterday's game, and he just needed just a moment of, because today another day of double round, and he was playing with black pieces, so he just offered a draw to see if he can get this mental rest.
Yeah, and I guess he succeeded. Seems to have been his plan to get a skipped round in this one, and just to be getting ready for the remainder of the games. And also we have a draw already on board 8 between Atabarek Eren and Ki Chen. They reached a very sharp position and agreed for a draw, which is interesting.
Yeah, that was that. I also have seen quite unusual draw in such position. Maybe they were both uncertain what happened. Maybe we can take a look just to see the final position in this game, board 8. Um, Not a position in which I would ever expect a draw to be agreed.
Yeah, certainly. It just feels like the fireworks are about to start, and we have just a draw agreed. But
It seems that Black offered a draw, and maybe Black actually didn't like his position that much, so he went for slightly sharper continuation and wanted to scare his opponent, or just said, okay, let's make a draw before some actual issues happen here. You see Eval Bar slightly pro-white, and maybe strategically it just is very good for white, and black doesn't have the attack necessary to even chances out fully.
yeah, I guess it just looks more scary than it is. We have a lot of defensive pieces here just nearby, being able to secure the king, and black doesn't have that many attackers, yet they have managed to get rid of G and F pawns, so there are open files that can potentially look dangerous, and if you don't have a clear plan what to do with white pieces, you can feel like black is just going to be strengthening their position, attacking, and us with white pieces will be just waiting and trying to weather the attack, which is unpleasant. But of course there are also the natural plans from the white side available, so the knight on a6 is first of all out of the game, and we can also be preparing the c5 breaks and trying to get some space on the queen side, use the knight on a6 being a weakness, and very big for getting this position together would be just to take control of the e4 square, the square that none of the black pawns can attack, so this is like an outpost for our pieces to be both attacking and defending in the same time. But yeah, very unusual to see draw agreed in this kind of position.
Yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, maybe we can take a look at the one game where we still don't have the end game. No, I guess in more, but for now we had a lot of end games. So game between Jonas Baum and Pa Inian, I think is a little bit more interesting at the moment. It's board number 6 of the tournament, so matchup between the players which currently have 3.5 points. Yeah, Jonas Baum was yesterday playing this very long game that we mentioned against Thomas Laurušas, so he also is probably quite tired, but he seems to be in a fighting mood. G4 has just been played, so let's take a look.
And he seems to be, and I guess it's also safe to assume that his opponent is in a very big fighting mood in this tournament. We saw him yesterday bluff with giving up the 2 pieces for a rook, just saying I have an attack, which was according to our analysis not working at all, but his opponent believed him, and then later on they went on to play a very sharp game which did end with a draw, but yeah, it was aggressive game with pawns getting swapped off almost every move, pieces flying around on some weird squares, and here again he has chosen an opening that is objectively that is just bad for black, but you are playing for a long game, that you're not exchanging any pawns, you're not committing to anything, and that then you're looking at the long game somewhere to overtake the initiative, and yeah, just outplay your opponent because you're a better player maybe.
It's interesting, we still have both kings in the center, and white already pushed the a pawn and the g pawn, so it's not exactly clear where will his king go. On both sides there are some slight weaknesses for white, because if you castle you usually want your pawns to be there, but probably still he can castle both short and long. White has full control of the center here as well, with 2 pawns, d4 and e4, so it should simply be better for white at the moment. According to all the principles that we know, it should be really nice. I like this move g4. It's very ambitious and also gaining a lot of space on the king side, taking control of the f5 square. Sometimes if we could bring our knight to f5, that would be really powerful.
I think here his point very much is that he doesn't see any other alternative for black king than to castle kingside due to the f7 pawn hanging.
Yeah, so that is also the problem for black, that black has to choose what to do with the king, unless he's just going to stay in the center.
Unless that. Yeah, so, and I guess maybe White is trying to force him away from the center, because one of the ideas right now could be to play g5, forcing an exchange, and also bringing knight over to g5, just attacking the f7 pawn. And the only way to defend it really will be either with the castle or rook f8, which is a rather uncomfortable move. So, yeah, that is one thing. Another thing that we have to worry about in regard for the f7 pawn is the typical tactic somewhere of queen coming to c4, attacking on f7 all of a sudden, and then we have some ideas connected with knight b5, knight d5, using the pin on the queen on c7. So at the moment that was nothing too dangerous, but eventually it can become a very, very big factor. So what could actually black do in this position? One of the Usually they do castle much more early than here, but if he's trying to avoid the castling, then one of his plans maybe could be something connected with a6, b5 and trying to push the knight away from b4, but in this particular position it just feels way too slow. Because
Yeah, sometimes a6 we see in Philidor position, which is very close structure to this, but there black already secured the king, usually white also secures the king, so there aren't those possibilities of immediate attacks, and here it's not exactly the case. But yeah, a6 is a funny looking move, but it just to prepare at least some activity, so b5 could be maybe could be something he will try.
yeah, but first of all, so it looks very dangerous. One thing why it looks very dangerous is that now b6 pawn is weakened, and let's say we do play something like this, we have to know what we are going to do about the pawn on f7. So
And there is still this queen c4 move that you mentioned.
So now the pawn on f7 is in big danger, and if we do castle, it could happen that queen c4 just comes. Maybe not immediately, maybe we can somehow take and then play queen c4, or we can leave it as it is and just play rook g1, right? Just go for a full scale attack, using the fact that also that the king is pinned down to the king side, and these
Yeah.
pieces are not playing.
And if we see white's activity and possibilities of attack just directly against the king, then the fact that black has a b5 move just feels like just a very tiny thing compared to a mountain.
Yeah, totally agree. So
So is black in trouble?
I think he has to maybe try to
Castle?
no, but castle is
Feels like you're going right there where your opponent just said, I am ready to attack you, and we are castling right, entering the lion's cave, or something like this. That just seems really scary to castle short here.
perhaps this is the moment when we already need to take on d4, or and then try to get out with the knight at least somehow, just to have some illusion of activity. Yeah, I'm not certain at all. There are no good squares for the knight anyways. We're not attacking anything, and we are giving up this f5 square, so it just looks...
Yeah, giving up the f5 square looks scary. What do you do here as black?
Yeah,
Maybe
this
c5. No, c5 looks also
maybe
bad.
a5 to get somewhere bishop a6 ideas to control the b4 that we were securing the square for the knight on c5. Yeah, that is a very uncomfortable position to play. For me personally, whenever opponent sets up with black pieces these kind of structures, I feel like it is my duty as a grandmaster and players from white pieces just to win the game. And even if I get a draw, I feel like very disappointed no matter who is my opponent. So this is very hard for me to imagine what is black supposed to do in these kind of structures. But there are players who I know who are very successfully managing to play these kind of positions, so it's mainly about just feeling them and having this, and also I guess liking this kind of playing style. So do you have some ideas, Anna, from the black side, how we should continue here?
No, I never play such positions. They feel just unpleasant for me to play because there are no active, no obvious active continuations from the black side. You are basically playing with fire, a little bit provoking your opponent. Maybe you know this is the key, that what you mentioned, that you feel obligated to punish it in a way. So they are provoking the opponent to punish them, and then sometimes it happens that people over push because they want to show that this is not the way to play chess, but they are able to keep risk under control. They are risking a little bit, but it's still not too much. I don't think I could play like this. So yeah, I just fully choose white here, trying to go for the activity, having the center. It just feels so correct, and I don't have this ability of playing with fire as black here is doing, I assume. Can he? No, d5 also is not possible, right? That's too much.
Yeah, I was thinking like that we could try to counter the attack on the flank with an direct blow in the center. So d5, if it would work, I mean that would be the way to go. And it would be the way to do it right now, before g4 is played, but it seems so counterintuitive to go for d5 in the moment when we have queen just staring down on our king. But perhaps that is the best we can do. So let's see what happens here directly. We do take on d5, and I assume we do need to take now with the knight, because if we do take with the pawn, we free up knight b5, and that should be a big deal. In connection with some tactics on taking on e5, then knight b5, and then getting bishop f4, and then some bad things are gonna be happening there all over.
A lot of bad things.
So we just need to calculate the precise move order, but yeah, we have to remove the knight from from c3 when we do this, and let's say we have an exchange. Actually, maybe we should take with the bishop to still leave the knight b5 option alive.
Oh, that's interesting. And then maybe playing for bishop on b7. Queen b8 to guard the pawn on e5. And maybe black is somehow holding. That's why this move d5 came to my mind, because this is how I try to usually play chess. I don't have the center, so I want to counterattack. Here are some nice tricks suddenly. Queen from b8 is actually attacking the bishop, so even though knight went right there so under two captures, black wants to take the bishop as well. Maybe it's somehow holding. Just to counterattack the center, it feels for me maybe this is what needs to be done. White's king is also there, so maybe sometimes if black manages to castle with open center, the attack will not be so direct anymore, because black will have also some counter game in the center.
Yeah, it could be. It could be that this is the moment to strike in the center, but I don't think he's gonna go for it though, because you still commit to rather bad position long term. Even if we have these kind of exchanges right here, and then we exchange on f3, we stay with this isolated pawn on d5 with no clear activity at all for us. So white could
maybe
castle.
Bishop c5, but then here this g4 move probably is not exactly ideal for white. Maybe even f5. f5 bar is not impressed, but
yeah, that is very interesting. Very interesting.
Maybe. Or bishop c5 fighting for the center a little bit more. Actually, let's see. Painian, he spent already quite a bit of time here. Maybe d5 is on his radar, because after g4, white is getting so much space and control, and it might be the moment to strike back. Otherwise, sometimes there is the situation that if you don't manage to counterattack in the center in the right moment, it might be too late.
Yeah, I mean, he could arrive at the d5 move simply by the method of elimination, that all the other moves seem to be very unpleasant. The attack is very dangerous otherwise. So if you do go for d5, we force things. We make sure that the pawn on f7 is not weak. We make sure that our king is not weak. And even though we have slightly unpleasant pawn structure, at least we're not getting mated. So yeah, g4 is before castles. Is very aggressive approach, and yeah, perhaps this is the way to deal with it indeed. And yeah, how long is he thinking on this move? Almost 20 minutes at this point already, so yeah, he must be considering everything.
Yeah, so this is a critical moment, and maybe d5 solves at least some of the issues, but sometimes when you choose to go for such opening, for such variation, you are on purpose not doing anything very direct in the center. So it might also be difficult just to go for that. very interesting. What is he going to choose actually now?
Yeah, indeed. And
Probably we could take a look at another game. Maybe we can see board number 10, where we have second seed of the tournament, Kacper Piorun, playing. Yesterday he suffered quite a painful loss. Painful because, well, we haven't talked with him, but it seemed that he was quite okay with his position, but then his opponent a little bit maybe understood it better and just outplayed him. So, of course, it's never nice to lose, especially when you are second seed in the open tournament. So let's see how is he doing today with the white pieces. On board number 10, Grandmaster Kacper Piorun against FIDE Master Ram Sherman.
Okay, and then I guess later we could take a look at board number 11, because I think that game is going to be finishing in a couple of minutes with a win for Paulius Pultinevicius, which might be interesting to see how White is basically checkmating his opponent in so very, very few moves and so very short time.
Okay, let's see now. Then board 10, Grandmaster Kacper Piorun. What is happening here? Okay, again we have a situation where one side took a full control of the center, and I guess he can be... although I wanted to say he can...
Board 10 now, yeah, Kacper Piorun against Ram Sherman, and
I wanted to say he can be quite happy about the center, but then I started to look that Black's direct attack on the center might not be so easy to address.
yeah, so and this that's a lot of pieces to take in on the first glance. So we have everything attacking everything, and there is a pawn hanging on c3. I think that is important to point out, because that immediately also attacks the rook on a1, but there is also a knight hanging on c6, and yeah, there's all these takings on d4. When looking at the elation bar though, the last move supposedly was quite a big mistake from the white side. White was having a pleasant position, and once bishop a4 got played, it went in the other direction, and suddenly is supposedly very good for black. So there might be some tactical
can
problems.
Black just take on d4?
We have just giving up on c6?
Yeah.
Wow.
Take on c3 now, and...
we can take with the queen, and we can have a double attack here.
Okay, that's tricky. So was bishop a4 a blunder? Okay, it doesn't lose, but...
You can keep taking on d7.
But take on a1?
And this is a tough decision to go for this kind of position. Okay, this is probably horrible, with two rooks having two open files and still the pawn on d4. Yeah, we have two pawns and a rook for two minor pieces, which is material advantage already for black, and we still have all the pieces working just perfectly. So we would need to retreat with the bishop right now somehow to keep it active. But it just feels so unnatural position to play from the white side.
Oh no, maybe he played bishop a4, attacking the knight, and you usually, when you attack a strong piece, you assume that, well, black doesn't have time to take the pawn because I attack the knight. Knight is more powerful, but maybe it's a blunder. Let's see, maybe we can come back to this game, but indeed board 11 just finished, so we can take a quick look how it developed there. We had a very impressive attack, and we can come back to this game and especially see if Ram Sherman is going to capture on d4, which seems to be giving him a very promising position.
Okay, yeah, so let's take a look at board 11, how Paulius Pultinevicius finally managed to play out an attacking kind of game like he likes to play them a lot. And so yeah, we see it here now on the big board, the position after rook d6, spectacular sacrifice. So the last move here would be rook takes d6, and out of nowhere, just we have a normal position, everything is equal, it looks like this is just standard, d and c pawns are exchanged in the standard d4 opening, and nothing much is happening, and it's all about positional pressure, you know, black is just playing rook b8, just preparing somewhere for b5, just gaining some more space, not being aware of any danger, and then we have rook takes d6.
That's beautiful. That's really nice attacking sacrifice. Drawing the queen away from the king side.
And again, losing control of the g5 square. We again see the same pattern. The g5 square, it is so important over and over and over again. We see some attacking ideas from the white side using this square. And yeah, again, knight g5, just forcing g6. Queen comes to h4. No way to defend.
That's really beautiful. The bishops, knight, queen, all attacking the king.
And it was still very important. The sacrifice was against the dark square bishop, which right now, after we provoke those weaknesses, is very big deal. Like if you look at the position just here, it doesn't feel like dark squares is just such a big deal. But yeah, if we combine it with the plan to provoke all the pawns to the light squares, all of a sudden it's all about dark squares. Like there's nothing more important than the bishop on b2 in this position.
And knight e4 was the final move of the game. Black simply resigned here, right?
No, black still played knight f6, king f8, queen h6, and the queen g5, queen h6, checkmate is just incoming, and now queen d6 was queen d6, knight e4, and now black resigned.
This knight e4, yeah. So the knight e4 was the final move of the game indeed. Yes, still the dark squares are the biggest issue in the position. And what a crushing attack by Paulius Pultinevicius. He was a winner here a couple of years back. This wasn't the best start of the tournament for him, so I'm sure he's really happy with the quick victory today in the morning round. That also gives him some time to prepare and rest before the second round of the day. And now last 4 rounds for him could prove to be very important. If he wants to get back to the very top, and we are sure he wants. He's a big fighter. Great attacking game, very nice attacking ideas. This game can be shown on the chess lessons.
Yeah, certainly. Just always taking care of all the pieces, and making sure that you have defenders for the king, and to be mindful of where our opponent bishops placed. So the bishop from b2 it doesn't stand there for no reason. It doesn't stand there to protect the d4 or e5 only. It is looking against the opponent's king. And so you always have to mind it.
And it's very interesting. I don't recall it in previous editions, but this year, in basically every round, we have such one game that there is a very typical attack performed, and even on this level you see here international master is playing with the black pieces and he is getting crushed in this way. So on every single level you have to remember about king safety, about piece activity. It's always going to be the most important to remember about those basic principles, and only then can we move forward to more complicated concepts. But yeah, very instructive game and crushing attack. Congratulations to Paulius Pultinevicius from Lithuania.
Yes, so have you noticed any other very exciting games or matchups, Anna?
For now, not yet. I think we can also take a look at the top local player, Grandmaster Nikita Meshkov's, not probably doing as great as he would like to be doing, but he is the highest rated Latvian player in the tournament, so maybe we can see his game.
So that is board 14. Nikita Meshkov's against Aras Vardanyan from Lithuania. A very solid FIDE master from Lithuania. He's always tough nut to crack, let's say that. He's just not giving you very much, playing very solidly. And yeah, Nikita is having strategically very nice position. He's having very nice ideas and very nice positions. We were looking at some of his games time to time, but somehow in those last 2 rounds he was not able to break through. Playing from the position of power, his opponent was all the time managing to just stay in the game just enough to not to lose, let's say that.
Yeah, and why I also saw this position, I was wondering, can we have another interesting attack here? From the white side, we have this pawn on e5, which gives us a lot of space on the king side. For example, knight on d7 cannot join the defense, so the most important defending piece is bishop on g6. But can we somehow or how? Because I think we want to have this attack. Can we somehow create some danger on the king side for black with the h pawn, with the f pawn, or maybe with all of the pawns? How would you try to play here as white?
Yeah, that is actually a very good idea. I think this is somehow part of his plan, why he's playing queen d2 as well here. I think he wants to first neutralize the knight from d7 completely before playing anything like f4. So if you were to play f4 immediately, we might need to face knight c5 and knight coming over to e4 to this very, very strong square, and also just looking all over there. So I think he first would like to play here queen e3, which is protecting e5 pawn, which is stopping some f6 ideas because of the queen staring down on the c6 pawn, and importantly just stopping knight c5, knight b6 ideas before they happen. And then we will be kind of ready for some attacking ideas. And h4, this certainly is the move I would like to get on the board. I don't know how to get it, because any move that we do for preparing it has some sort of drawbacks. But if we could just play h4, if black would be just so kind just to play somewhere queen c7 on their own and allowing h4, that would be truly amazing here, since h4 move will provoke a pawn move from the opponent. And that is the big deal here, that black will need to move some of the pawns which are guarding the king, creating some new targets for our attack. So let's say after h4, h6 somewhere would be played. We have an option all of a sudden to go for some lines with h5, g4, g5, f4, just trying to exchange them, trying to get to this one pawn which is provoked. And if we see ever f6, then I think we will just happily swap it off, creating a weakness on e6. And if black is to take with a g-pawn, then the king is going to be always weak, since the bishops, we have a pair of bishops. That is something to remember here. Open position is going to favor white, and if we ever take that with a knight, then we have the weakness on e6, and we could all of a sudden switch our plan completely to attacking it and just using those weaknesses. But so I think this is certainly on his mind, but he wants to be ready for it. He wants to improve his queen first, maybe make still another improving move somewhere on the queen side with the pawns. Maybe before b5 is as well an option, to draw back the rook from c6, just to make sure that there is like zero action happening for black, and they're completely tied down. And then when that happens, then we are just launching an attack on the king side. So kind of using this two-sided attack, so we are both attacking on the queen side and on the king side in the same time. Okay, queen c7 actually was played, so
kindly removing the queen as you were asking, but pawn on e5 is hanging, so it has to be addressed as well. And by the way, just to tell you all the viewers, Nikita, so the best Latvian player here, that's this guy in the yellow t-shirt here. We see him super focused, very ambitious guy. So he for sure wants to come back to the very top of the tournament and try to win here, especially it's in Riga, in Latvia, in his city. And now after queen c7, how do we play queen e3? That way queen is quite flexible on both sides. In the center, looking towards the queen side, towards the king side, it can join the game everywhere.
yeah, I like queen e3 a lot. It seems like the best square right now for the queen on the board. Like if we could choose to put it anywhere on the board, I would choose e3. So it feels like a good idea just to play it there. And I don't feel comfortable committing with f4, because really knight could be coming to c5, and then we all the time have to worry about the e4 square. So I do prefer to leave the pawn on f2, that black does not get too ambitious regarding the e4 square, since we keep an option to kick whichever piece out of there, so this cannot be used as an outpost for neither bishop or the knight. So queen e3, I think this is what we're gonna see played rather quickly. And then the question is, will black play f6, or is he gonna be looking for some other other approach to the positional problems he has here, because after f6, the one thing is that we cannot take on f6 immediately.
Because then e5 is coming and bishop is stuck. Even though it's in the center, it cannot find a place to hide. a7 is the only square that is unguarded, but then after b6, it will be trapped.
So that's one drawback for the queen on e3 here, but I think we can be rather comfortable after f6 to answer f4 right now as well, due to the fact that now any ideas like knight c5 are not really there, because we could, for example, just take, and take this guy. So that is not working for black here, and bishop on e4, just standing there, is not gonna be doing that much, because again, we'll just take, getting as many squares for this bishop as possible. Bishops want breathing room, they want that they would be at having squares to control, squares to attack, so we take, not to be staring down the pawn, and if it's recaptured with the pawn, any moment I think we can exchange the bishop with bishop f3 or bishop d3, while in the same time keeping open ideas just to go for some direct attack. Also now I don't think e5 is gonna be working, because we could exchange and then we have very many attacking pieces coming for the king over there.
Yeah, so it seems like a promising position actually for Nikita. Let's see, as Tom's mentioned, his opponent is very solid. He can be very also patient. Most likely he's not going to be helping out too much and creating his own weaknesses, but for now, thanks to this pawn on e5, bigger, like there's a space advantage, chances on the king side to push h4, h5, get a lot of space and some threats directly against the king. It could be quite dangerous. And now I think we should come back to the leaderboards, because we actually managed to guess in most cases the development in the games, and we have our players with the perfect scores there. So let's see on board number 1, briefly, let's just see if Jakub Pajeken is managing to do anything against this isolated pawn that we were mentioning, and then we'll cover board number 2 and 3. But yeah, let's start with the first board. Jakub Pajeken against Krishna Rohit. 2 players on 4 out of 4 are fighting, and let's see if one of them is going to remain on this perfect score after the round 5.
So there is slight development in this game. The rooks have been just exchanged. Other than that, I guess the position remains to be very, very similar to as it was before. So black is struggling due to the fact that they have a bad bishop. So the light square bishop is on the same color as all of the black's pawns. So that means that it has very, very small
And that's
room.
true, all of the pawns. That's rare.
But the problem for actually getting winning chances for white here is that there is only one weakness. Only the d5 pawn is actually weak here. And if we ever consider something like bishop takes e4, then we remove this, the only weakness that black has. So de could just very comfortably follow here.
And bishop e4 and exchanging the rooks and just playing for the fact that we have a better knight is not enough to win the endgame, right?
Yeah, well, I guess probably it will come down again to the same issue. One weakness we will able to be fine, but black will be just in time to defend it. And if white will try to activate the king and break through in the endgame with knight against the bishop, then we will need to do some pawn breaks, like exchange on f3 sometimes later on, which will allow black to set up the pawns on the ideal squares, on the dark squares where he wants them to be. Because also the queenside structure, it's not fixed. Black can any moment set up b6, a5, and all of a sudden those pawns are actually very well placed, and bishop is joining the game through a6.
So most likely we'll see a draw here, right?
It does seem to be very, very likely result, but I think they're going to be playing. They're still going to be playing. I think that player with white pieces is trying to find some chances, is looking for some ideas how to break through here. I think he is now calculating, does rook c1 give him any chances whatsoever or no? Because we at least take control of the c file. But I think it runs into some trouble here with rook b6. Rook b6 attacking the knight and attacking the pawn later on, and this exchange is definitely favoring black because we exchange our bad piece and now we have only active pieces, and despite the fact that rook is active and annoying, we have a weakness all of a sudden of our own.
And rook on b3 is even more active because it actually attacks on b2. It also defends on b7, so white cannot win the pawn with rook c7 check because this pawn on b7 is guarded. So yeah, let's see. It's really difficult. It's this isolated pawn structure. It's very famous structure, and usually endgame should be good for the side that can attack this pawn on d5, but it might not be enough to get a full point.
Yeah, I think it's actually here we already are running in the situation that we cannot attack the pawn any longer. The knight is kind of neutralizing the bishop completely, and our knight is not able to join attack in any other way, and the king. The important thing is that the king is just there, so we have an extra defender. White's king can never attack the d5 pawn, while the black's king is just over there, just protecting everything. And the rook b6 idea, that's I think was the main point of rook d6 left in the first place. So rook b6 is just there, looking to provoke some action from the knight on b3 and the pawn from b2. So yeah, I think we are gonna see a draw. I would not be like, depending on the way the player with white pieces likes to play out his games, but I wouldn't be surprised if something goes wrong as well here for white, being too ambitious, trying to over push the position, and black could actually try to find some winning ideas of his own. For example, if he manages to activate the bishop through a6, that could be one way, or he gets in a dangerous fashion the rook on the b file, and all of a sudden, yeah, we have just black playing for a win. So one pawn that is not enough to be giving a conclusive evaluation of the position.
Sorry, in the meantime, I'm getting some information. We might have had some mistake in the broadcast between the boards. Maybe there something was not exactly like this. I will have a confirmation. Maybe we can have also a guest in the studio who I'm not sure if he will want to join. So let's see. But most likely the game we saw how Paulius Pultinevicius won. It wasn't his game.
Yeah, because we see him in camera right now playing, just in the background.
That is, yeah, in the background with white t-shirt, that is Paulius Pultinevicius, and most likely this impressive attack that we have seen was actually from Grandmaster Kacper Piorun, which is good news for the Polish fans, if there are any following, because, yeah, yesterday second seed had this quite painful loss, and now he wrote on the chat that it was actually his game. So let's see. Kacper, do you want to join the studio to show us your impressive attack once again? Are you still in the playing hall?
He's gonna hear you though in 15 minutes only.
Yeah, that's true. I will ask. Let's see. But yeah, that means that something switched. Now it seems to be back. So that's okay.
Okay, so just those two boards were switched in the order, I assume, and actually Paulius Pultinevicius is the one who played the bishop a4 move and who had this trouble with the possible tactics, and Kacper Piorun won a nice game. Okay, good to know. Very nice. Congratulations to Kacper. And so yeah, we expect this board number one to be played out in a rather calm fashion, most likely with a result of a draw, but I think both players are looking to still fight, and the game is not gonna be finishing that soon here. On the board 2, Zheng is pushing in the kind of manner that we expected that he could be trying to push, so we could switch to board number 2.
Yeah, board number 2, the Chinese Grandmaster, I have to say, he really impressed me yesterday, how he managed to push and create still chances. And now he's trying to do it one more time, Chongsheng Zhang against Joseph Kirelia, board 2. We basically predicted this development, this exact development. Just now he found a different move, so we'll see it in just a second. This is what I think is very important skill. You have a slight advantage, and your opponent is just a move away from solving the problems, just a move away from finishing development, from getting rid of the weakness or exchanging your piece that is causing the biggest difficulties, like in this case bishop on f3, and the skill to manage to stop him, the skill to manage to continue putting pressure and not allowing your opponent to solve problems too easily is such a very important thing to be able to win the games with the strongest opponents, because Joseph Girel is rated 2463. We've seen him already playing here very good chess. He was the one on the other side yesterday, realizing his advantage in a very impressive way. So now the last move b5 is exactly to prevent the bishop from d7 coming to c6, but it allows bishop from a7 coming to c5. Is that a move or no?
Yeah, bishop c5 is probably met by knight b7, taking the pawn and attacking the bishop. So that is, I think, what he
That's
is
not in time, yeah.
counting on, but I don't like it. I don't like the b5 move. It seems like we are committing ourselves too much to defense of the knight on d6. I might be wrong, but the question is, of course, what is the next move from the black side here? That is like the main thing in this position, as we need to make a move. And we need to solve the issue of two pawns hanging before the c4 is played. So at the moment, white is not threatening anything, but they will play c4, and then the threat is going to be very, very real. So we have this one move right now to try to solve all of those issues. I was wondering about move like e5 here. I mean, it seems maybe not ideal, yet what it does is that, yeah, we give up the control of the d5 square, but we free our bishop. And in case of some move like d5, we are very comfortable to play bishop d4 as well sometimes, just attacking this knight and cutting off the rook's defensive resources against this file. Oh, I forgot about the pawn on b7 though. So we would first need to play bishop e6, attacking on c4 once again, and then we are ready already for bishop d4 ideas. So I think that this gives black some time to get out with the pieces a little bit. And interestingly, how is he trying to strengthen the pressure right now?
That's the trick in the end games, that at some point you're a bit running out of the pieces, because now
Oh wow, bishop c8.
bishop c8 was played,
Oh wow.
and the bar says it's completely fine.
So bishop c8,
Wow.
just getting it away from d7, and now using the fact that c5 square is not controlled anymore, so planning to play simply bishop c5 in the next move, forcing the knight somewhere away.
But that's such a difficult move to make. But maybe also he didn't like e5 is quite a big decision. Moving the pawn, weakening maybe sometimes the d5 square wasn't that clear for him. And the question is, how does white
But
react?
what if you just play king f1? Do you voluntarily go for this endgame? I don't think so. It is nicely blockaded on dark squares, but are you ever entirely happy to play this? I guess. Oh, we have rook d8, rook coming to the second rank and attacking f2, so that
And
might solve.
exchanging the rooks with different color bishops will be a draw, despite the pawns being connected, B and C, because they're already blocked on the C5 square. So with different color bishops, it's always about managing to block on your color. So here, if black is defending, they have dark square color bishop, so they just want to put the blockade on the dark squares. That would be very impressive if that is what he's intending, to just go for that. But yeah, that should be a draw. It's not an easy decision. Maybe there's even something after king f1. Maybe there's something even easier. Can you keep waiting with something else?
Maybe we can start pushing pawns somewhere, like e5 now. Yeah, but
Still,
I think bishop c8 in general is a strong move. I think it is a very strong move, and I am not a big fan of b5 idea here from the white side, and it just feels like we had to comment a little bit more on some of the decisions because we cannot be preparing forever. At some point we have to start collecting, and I'm just curious, what was the idea after bishop b7, bishop takes a4, I guess, and do we manage? Rook is hanging, so we can make a move like rook d2. Rook d8 would be terrible due to knight c8. So at least we have a passed pawn. c5, c4, c4, c5 could be coming, and we have some target, very clear target for the game.
and the time situation is basically equal, so it is actually black that has a slight advantage on the clock. Which is interesting because he's the one who is having to solve all the issues all the time. But on the other hand, white has to try to find ways to keep applying the pressure.
Yeah, one careless move from white, and the game, any chances for anything in the game is completely over. So that is why in such positions you are spending a lot of time trying to not let your opponent out in any way. Oh. Yeah, but I think he's gonna manage to defend it because I mean bishop c8.
He showed
such
that
a nice move.
he's ready for a solid play, and no matter how solid, he can deliver because bishop c8 is a very difficult move for just to make. Go back. We were just talking a couple of moves ago. The main hope for black was to play bishop d7, right? That was the main thing, and now he's just going back, even though it feels like it is not a progress for him, but it will be because he will try to now remove the knight from d6, and that defends all the major threats. The only thing is that white can force a capture on b7, but well, black has capture on c3, and if ever knight is exchanged for the bishop on c8, that leads to those different color bishops, which are what often when you try to defend a worse position, or even you see that you will lose the pawn, it's a great way to just secure a draw or a very drawish position, going for different color bishop endgame.
Yeah, and once again, Joseph Giral is showing a very, I would say, deep understanding of the positional play. Yesterday with the queen exchange, understanding that in this kind of position the queens should come off the board. Here as well, just it's all about the squares. It's not all about the activity and not all about going forward, but just staying compact, staying solid, not creating weaknesses, and solving the defensive problems in this kind of manner.
Yeah, I agree. We haven't seen him in the previous games because he was playing a bit lower, but yesterday and today he's showing very nice understanding. Also, very impressive, solid chess. But yeah, yesterday we've seen Zheng Chongsheng create something out of nothing. Let's see if he will manage to do it today as well. Should we take a look at board number 3? Where Jakub Seman is playing with the top seed of the tournament.
Yeah, let's take a look at board number 3. There was a repetition of the position for one move, but I don't think they're gonna keep repeating. And
yeah, it was black who repeated once, and now he can think whether he wants to continue doing it or not. Both players are on 3.5 out of 4. And yeah, as we were mentioning already, Jakub Seman is a world champion under 16. Actually, after he won his title, there were those very viral videos going, how his school welcomed him. So maybe you remember the videos, you don't exactly remember him, but that was for him. The whole school was waiting, and the video was like how he's going up the stairs, and just kids... and also the teachers and the school director were waiting for him after his world championship victory. So that was really great to see. I think they had like few millions of views. Everyone was sharing it in the chess world. So that was a great moment, I think, for chess in general. And yeah, he's a very strong player. And now he is trying to fight against Nicolas Todor, who's we thought is pushing a little bit, thanks to just activity and thanks to the fact that the c6 pawn is controlling all of the squares in the center. And now, we had this bishop b4, king b2, bishop a3 repetition, since the knight is hanging. And now Nicolas can decide. Most likely he's not gonna repeat, right? We don't expect him to repeat.
No, his position is everything you want here. So exactly like what we mentioned, what we want to get here. We want to get h5, and g5 is nicely provoked for us. We set up a very solid pawn chain. The g3 pawn in any endgame is gonna be a weakness because we can never exchange it. We can never play g4, as that would create a passed pawn. And when we think just long term, like that the endgame could come when the rooks even get swapped off, or with one rook, so then there's some activity. The bishops could be coming around, and this will be the impossible pawn to defend in all of those scenarios. And we have space advantage on the queen side, the only place where actually right now there is any game at all happening. So he's just thinking, does he want to exchange one pair of rooks right now or no? He certainly doesn't want to exchange all the rooks, but this is a big decision. Do we exchange one pair of rooks before opponent gets to play rook d1 or no? Since that could completely eliminate any chances for countergame for white if we do eliminate one rook, and then we can be in for 100% in the driver's seat. Yet both of our rooks are pretty nice. Rook on h8 is keeping the rook on h1 because h4 otherwise could also come, and we could take control over the h-file, and then later on the third rank. And the rook on a8 is also very nicely standing. And okay, there's something happened with the Lichess broadcast board. It got some sort of update. I'm sure that it's gonna be back in no time.
Yes, in a moment we should get the boards back. Maybe since, okay, they are slowly coming back, unless we take a short break and let them sort it out.
This is a good moment to take a short break, and we'll be back with all the exciting and decisive action of the round 5.
Yeah, exactly. And the boards will be back, and we'll be back to covering, especially our leaders. We have still 3 people with a perfect score. Let's see if it will remain so after this round. So stay tuned. After a short break, we will be back to cover all the moments of this round. Welcome back to the 5th round of the Riga Technical University Open. We are back today. There is a super exciting day because we have 2 rounds. So I think we can jump right back to the games and see how is the action developing. Still, the leaders are playing, so the players with the perfect score are still there. And Toms, how do you think which board should we take a look at?
I think let's take a look at board number 6 between Baum, Jonas, and Inian Pa. It's an exciting game. They're happening right now, and we left it after the g4 move, wondering if the break in the center is going to happen. It didn't happen, but the game managed to become complicated nevertheless. So we can...
because I also was looking at this game, and black had a chance to go for the break, but instead white went for the break, so the position in the center opened up, and we had this very interesting situation on the h1 a8 diagonal. We can show it to you. Here are the players. Jonas Baum, he is a young player from Poland, very promising with a lot of cool ideas, and we've seen that Inian Pa also showcasing great chess, so very promising game in general, and also from the opening, very fighting chess. So is that the current position? I guess that is the current position.
Yeah, this is the current position, but actually let's go back a few moves and let's see the tactic that was missed, I guess, by Jonas. Very nice tactical blow in the center using all the weaknesses on the long diagonal. So in this moment, after there was in general played rook f8, we were not sure how to defend the f7 pawn.
Yeah,
And
we were expecting this d5 move instead. That was the kind of principal strike in the center, especially after the g4 move. But of course, it's not so clear. So Grandmaster Inyan decided to go rook f8. Also a difficult move to make, I think, but he just had problems with the f7 pawn, so he just tried to solve this straight away.
And yeah, and I think that probably here Jonas could have continued with his initial plan of playing somewhere g5 and put the pressure on f7, making sure that king stays in the center on e8. But instead he decided to go for the break in the center, which also makes a lot of sense. And interestingly, it just got completely ignored. So after d5 we didn't see a capture, but we saw just a6 just taking control over the b5 square. And this is where the trouble started for the player with white pieces. So after taking is all fine, and here knight d5 was probably rushed, a little bit rushed decision. I would guess that g5 could have been played also to get control again on the f7, or maybe simply bringing some piece on the d file just to control the d5 square, or knight d2, just somehow just to keep the tension there and not letting black out. And after knight d5 here followed queen b7.
Maybe queen c4 made sense as well.
Queen c4.
Apparently not, but defending the pawn on e4 and pinning the bishop, I think it makes some sense, but probably for some reason it doesn't really work. Hard to see though quickly. For what do you see?
Maybe simply no, not knight c5. Yeah, I do not see what could be. Oh, maybe we play b5?
b5, I think white can simply take, but maybe
and
black...
queen b7 at the end.
Or black plays queen b7 straight away and prepares b5 and also attacks on e4. Maybe that move immediately can also be practical. So instead followed knight d5.
And now after queen b7, this is where the blunder happened, and queen d3 was played, just looking to defend the d5 and e4, and here is a very, very nice trick. Knight takes e4 all of a sudden, and other knight coming to f6.
But let's just appreciate this position, because on the h1 a8 diagonal we have 7 pieces, so only g2 square is free. Other than that, all of the squares are covered by the pieces, and usually when the pieces are piled up on diagonals or files, actually the tactics are there. So even intuitively, one could feel, come on, there's too many of them happen here gathered, and black is the one that is controlling this diagonal with the queen and the bishop. So black is using the fact now knight f6 is coming and stuff for white are falling.
Yeah, and the reason why this probably got missed is that you simply sacrifice a knight and you don't take it back immediately. So now white is actually piece up, but there is no way to defend the queen and the knight in the same time, so we just have to retreat with the queen, and now all of a sudden black just takes back a full piece and is simply one pawn up. But yeah, the b6 pawn was attacked, so b5 got played, and now we see rook g3 also answered. Of course, there is some compensation for white, because king is on e8 and there's rook on f8, so king doesn't even have a way to run away from the center in the most classical way. That would be king f8 and then just hiding a little bit, at least away from the central files. So in this case the king has to stay on e8, and that's why it is such a still good chances for white, I would say here.
Yeah, it must be more than just some compensation, because also white's pieces, they are located on quite active squares, and h6 pawn could be just captured very soon. So the position is far from clear. When you look at the evil bar, slightly black, but I don't think that matters at all. There are both human players playing this position. So I think this is an open, exciting game for 3 results now, and this is what we love to see here.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly very open game, and
it's even difficult to choose the side here.
But I think that just mentally you feel good here with black, because you played rather dubious opening, and then you come out in a completely messy position where objectively you should be slightly better. So you have to have just, just psychological edge here a little bit, and you have to feel like yeah, your opponent missed a tactic as well. Whenever the last tactic was missed by one of the players, I think that usually the other player is the one who feels like he's in the driver's seat and who is playing for the win and just feeling more confident.
Yeah, that could be. If we look just at the position, I'm not sure if I wouldn't be choosing white, but since it all developed this way, who knows? And the time situation, although the time situation is still okay for both players, and it's also not like white spent too much time adjusting to the position. So let's see,
Oh wow,
h5.
h5.
Okay, Painian is playing extremely interesting chess. It's hard to predict some of his moves. That's fun to see. H5 wasn't on our radar. He just maybe wanted to exchange this H pawn, which was hanging, was attacked in many cases. Now
And
after
here we could have an issue that the queen joins in the game through h1, so that's why we don't want to take on h5. But now we have time. Cannot we create something along here, maybe some tactics on taking and then rook hanging? Okay, the first question that comes to my mind is, what do we do after this? Do we take? And then what is the answer against rook takes on f3 and queen b5?
here there is no good answer because king is getting checkmated, bishop b6 is coming, and somewhere should be huge issues for black. So no, black cannot take. Here, yeah, here queen is overloaded on b7 basically, so it is defending the bishop on f3 and the pawn on b5. Maybe black plays h4, asking the rook, are you gonna take? But I guess rook will just take. Queen takes, and now maybe even taking on a6 is possible.
But we give up the rook.
Yeah, we give up the rook, but maybe there is a checkmate. We give up the rook. It's not our rook. We can give it up for our viewers. And look, this has to be winning because there are no pieces to help the king. And again, queen coming to the c file, and that's game over. That's quite cute. Checkmate.
Yeah, that is very, very nice. Just using again, showing rooks are useful only if there are open files on which they are actually playing. If they are just standing, protecting some pawns, or just standing on initial squares, it is much more important to have some pieces. But then I'm wondering, what is he planning? What is he gonna play after a takes b5?
Well, he must have seen it because, I mean, white has... You always have to consider the captures in general, and especially in this position where the king is still in the center. It's very important to just look at those, especially with rook being on a1, on a8. So many things just open up after taking on b5. Will he... What can he do? d5? Is d5 an option?
But
that looks bad
this guy
because...
stays hanging there.
Yeah. But maybe d5 and d4.
No.
This is crazy.
Bishop
So
c5
what is happening?
doesn't make much sense, I guess.
Well, other than preventing d4, so I think it makes sense humanly.
It was my first intuitive idea, yeah, to just remove d4 attack, that the pieces could not connect once again. But it gives up also a lot of central control. But yeah, the position is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And he took on b5. He already took on b5. Wow.
And that seems to be a very good practical move because, well, white is a pawn down. And if your opponent's king is in the center, you want to open things up. You want to open things up and immediately capture on g4, I think, was played, yeah?
Capture on g4 was played, yes.
But look, okay, Bard is not a fan of this move. Now it seems that white is taking, getting some chances, and it feels, I mean, the king is on e8, the rook is on f8. That's why I was mentioning that maybe, yeah, I would be more drawn to white's position. But it's very concrete. Every single move matters here. Bishop c4. I mean,
it just runs into d5.
But it makes sense, and there are so many moves that both players have to consider here. But yesterday was also the same case in Inyan's Pa game, right? he
Yes.
had this crazy position that every single move could change the evaluation. Uh,
And
taking
he was playing the also fearlessly on the last seconds. And even in complete type trouble, he was going for the most sharp line. And here he still has time on the clock. And yeah, just wow. Do
that
we
is
just recapture back? No, that is actually a mistake for white. So there is some very,
But
very
can we
specific
go
continuation.
for the same again? Can we take the bishop on f3? But now it's not the queen that has to capture, but the pawn. But still, b6 maybe, or even b6, and just taking control of the light squares. In long castle incoming, bishop d5, queen a4, some crazy.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Just using the domination on the light squares. And b6 is a very strong pawn. Indeed, we are going to be preparing this bishop d5 somewhere. If we get bishop on d5 without pawn moving, the game, it's safe to say white is winning. So black would need to try to react somewhere quickly, like d5 immediately, but we have some other issues then to deal with, like a check on a4, forcing the king to b8, and then we could even have bishop takes d5 and rook d1.
Wow, are we going to see rook f3? Rook f3 is such a cool move because we just give material, you know, you just sacrifice something. It's not clear yet for what, but then this combining of strategy together with tactics. So we are giving the rook, and sometimes it is that rook, even though it's more valuable than the bishop mathematically, then in this specific position, bishop might be simply a stronger piece. So we just take it. It's an exchange in a way. And we just want to get control of the light squares.
And why HG is probably very, very dangerous is that we open up the H file and all of a sudden a rook can join the game, and not the queen but the rook, and then the queen has a possibility to join later. We also win the F8 square for the king, which is a very, very big deal, as we saw, because white wants to attack on this light square diagonal, and if king can hide on F8, it feels just much more safe.
Yeah, often we had this check on a4, on b5, and king had to go to d8, and we've seen the bishop joining the attack. It would be difficult probably to directly get to the king if it goes to f8, but now it's a critical moment. Will Jonas find rook f3? And also, maybe there is something else, of course, but it seems that rook f3 is a very strong move. Also, before this bishop runs away from there, to just take it. Otherwise, maybe bishop d5 in some cases can be played, or even just rook h8, and then even sacrifice maybe is not so strong. b6 immediately also makes sense. Curious if, yeah, then bishop will just escape the rook. Not, don't take me, and
But
the
then we
bishop.
could play some move like queen g4, not opening the h file, and the king is still on e8. The king is on e8, and we actually have a passer on h file as well, so we have two passed pawns, which can, at the moment, is not very dangerous, but if this pawn gets to h6, then that is a lot to take care from the black side here, just two such distant passed pawns.
Maybe now d5 could be good, and the idea is to play d4, and after c3 again I will play d4, I think, and after white takes there is bishop b4 check maybe first, and some queen b6. I don't know which one should be played first, apparently not. But there are some ideas for black as well. King on e1 is in the center as well. So very important moment. I'm so excited if he's going to play rook f3. Just to see this beautiful idea on the board of sacrificing. Positional sacrifices are so nice to see.
I expect b6. I expect b6 simply to be played. That is so much more. You know, he probably is thinking about rook f3. Obviously, he had it on mind already before, but at this moment, it just feels like, no, I had to keep the pawn on b6. I can't be in big trouble if I have a pawn on b6. So I'm not gonna take too big a risk in case I'm misevaluating something there. And
this is a moment also to you, dear viewers, if you are watching. How would you approach this position? And you can kind of test yourself. Would I take on f3? Would I play b6? And then you can compare what those strong players choose. When I was small, I had this such training that coach had a book, and we were watching the game, and then there was a question like, which move would you choose, like a little test, and then comparing to what the strong player did as well. I this was one of my favorite training. I was always excited, like, will I guess this move or will I not guess this move? I honestly don't know what book was it, but now we can do it when watching the games of good players in a real time, in a way. So yeah, we can test ourselves. I think Rook F3 is not such an obvious move. It's easy for us to say. We also see that Evil Bar likes white, so we are looking for something. And it's always easy, I think, when doing commentary to sacrifice the pieces. But during the game, of course, every single decision can be just game-changing, so it's not so easy to sacrifice then. But let's see. I mean, he's a young player. He's playing a very nice game. He played this G4, he went forward, so maybe he will go for it.
Yeah, maybe, but it's just such a mental struggle against yourself just to make this decision. Yeah, but because by the board, nobody is telling him what is the evaluation. He doesn't know like what kind of ideas he should be looking for. He probably doesn't know even if he's better, worse, or it's equal, or what is like at all going on. Because in this kind of position, you're just trying to find the best move. You have usually you're not thinking about those evaluations so much because it's just too many tactical things to keep in mind.
Yeah, in this position you probably can't simply know. Now he went down under 20 minutes. The time pressure is slowly building up as well. And it is a factor, like we see, still 20 minutes, so he has time to think, right? But remember that here there is no additional time after move 40. So once players go down on time, and they only have 30 seconds after every single move, so time trouble is something they really want to avoid. And that means when the players see they are already under 20 minutes, and he also sees that he is now lower on time than his opponent, so he doesn't want to spend too much and not to get into just too big time trouble, too low on time, and he needs to be careful about that as well. And it's again adding to the struggle of can I sacrifice? Should I make this decision now, or should I make a quick decision just not to go low on time? There's just so many things affecting you during the game. So yeah, let's see. Probably he's still going to take a couple of minutes though before he makes a move, right?
Yeah, but important also to make a decision without going too low on time. Whatever is the decision, to leave at least those 10 minutes on the clock, and yeah, just to be able to navigate the further positions. Yeah, so in the meantime, on the top boards, they are getting played out all those rather complicated endgames. So the first board we expect to finish in a draw, rather. Although, actually, I'm wondering if black is not close to overtaking, if white is not careful.
Maybe we should see. This is the critical board, even though we reach an early endgame. Oh, he took on f3. No, come on, we cannot, no, we will not switch now, I guess, or will we? Wait, this is too exciting, he took on f3. We just seen it on the camera. We have it confirmed on the live board. He took on f3.
His opponent is not at the board at the moment.
I am too excited. I like the stare. He's drinking water and giving a look to his opponent. He wants to see, like, did you expect it?
Yeah, because in these kind of moments, you know, you're looking at your opponent for some sort of signs, for some sort of approval, you know, like, because something must have been like opponent is also has been counting it, and you know, you're just thinking, did he blunder it? Did he not blunder it? Yeah, you're just trying to get anything, you know, because you're not 100% certain yourself.
The viewers will only see this in 15 minutes, so I wrote on my chat that there might be a scream in 15 minutes. Oh, wow. Nice. Well, this is exciting. This could be I think this is the most exciting game of this round in general, and now after Rook f3 it gets even more spicy. Both players around 20 minutes, so this is basically a rapid game at this point. But what a great move. Very brave, you know, especially it's always the case if you're playing against a higher rated opponent. Okay, oftentimes it differs very much how players approach those rating differences, but almost always you still have some respect there. And so sacrificing now, and it's not an obvious sacrifice, there is no immediate return of the material or a checkmate. Very interesting to see.
Yeah, but I think that also a player with black pieces now is gonna take his time. He's gonna think, does he take with the queen? Does he take with the pawn? Also try to calculate some few next moves. Just to, it's a big moment. It's a very, very big moment in a game when something gets sacrificed. So every decision is now very, very important, because there is some appeal to taking with the queen as well in this kind of position, as you have some threat. You have some threat thanks to the G pawn. So if opponent is not checkmating you, you can sometimes consider taking on h3. So with the pawn, this is a very fastly running past pawn. So you're calculating these kind of lines. Maybe I can get away with it, you know? No, he took with the pawn. He took with the pawn.
He took already. Let's just see if we'll have b6 immediately. This is an interesting moment. Or will Jonas Baum still take his time? We should soon move away from this game. But we have immediately b6 on the board. And black is now put in a very difficult situation, because the main threat, I guess, is simply long castle now, right?
Long
or is
castle.
queen a4?
Oh, wow. I thought that queen a4 is the main threat.
Okay, so
But maybe also like queen a4 and queen a5, I thought that those are the two main threats, because just simple queen a5 is so hard to deal with, because if we do get this bishop on d5, I think it's just the game over.
yeah, but long castle is also this idea to bring the bishop to d5.
So long castle. Okay.
But you're surprised, I see.
Yeah, I'm surprised, because I really liked my rook on the a file, since I want to promote b pawn, and I had thoughts that I want my rook on the a file, that it would just be coming in there, taking the a6 pawn. But it does make a lot of sense just to get a long castle and very, very quickly secure the king, so that you don't have to worry about anything like rook g8, rook g1, and in the same time you're threatening this bishop d5. So that makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised because I just didn't consider it somehow at the move. I was so focused on the queen moves and all the checks that yeah,
you
but
were
it
not
is
looking at this move. So, but now question is, what can black do? Like, how do you keep it alive? Queen c6 maybe? That way black prevent... Oh no, but then b7. Although b7, rook b8 maybe is too early. But what is the move that you play?
yeah, queen c6, we could play bishop c4, I think.
Or bishop b3 is a funny move.
Or bishop b3 coming, yes, here for the king, just slowly, step by step.
Yeah, probably queen on c6 on the same diagonal as the king is a little bit asking for trouble. But now, what do? Do you maybe play d5? But d5 doesn't seem to help as well. But maybe with the idea to push d4, and if queen a4, I just want to see if we can, with black, try to force the queen exchange as a defensive try. After queen a4, queen d7, and okay, we are losing the pawn on d5 if white wants to take it, but at least the king is not gonna be maybe such a huge issue.
No, that seems to be too much, but how?
Rook b8, I guess. No, also apparently not.
The king is in a complete cage after bishop c6. I think we can just take on a6. There are no moves. We can't get out. And rook a7 is coming, rook d7 is coming. And we have no squares for the bishop even.
But if no, then what do you try? Otherwise, all those issues are there, and still with the queens on the board, the checkmate will be...
Maybe we go for long castle.
long castle is also still possible. Okay, that's funny. That way black is actually attacking the bishop on d5. Something has just been played by long castle now, actually, immediately after...
Oh, wow.
After the b6 move, we have long castle on the board. Wow, but the queens are still there. Now I don't. What about bishop c4? I guess then d5 is
Then d5 is really coming,
a problem. Now attacking the bishop and the queen.
But this looks so bad. So very, very bad. King is just there. All the pieces are...
Maybe now your move queen a5, because that way we threaten bishop d5. No, okay, long castle makes sense. At least you are threatening d5 and the d5 pawn is defending by the rook. So now something clever needs to be played.
Can I play bishop takes?
with the idea that if rook takes, queen c4 follows, attacking the king and the rook.
But that is too simple for black. There is safety. This king is also not so safe, and we get rid of the most dangerous piece that we have. So that is very welcome exchange, I think, for the player with black pieces. But what about queen c7 here and bishop d5?
Queen c3, okay, queen c3
with an idea,
check.
queen c7, queen a7, checkmate.
And we get the d5 square. This is what we really want, because if black manages to get d5, then they have some air. But queen c3...
And if we go for something like rook c8, I think we can just take, right? Takes, and now we just get back with a bishop. I don't know, e4, f3, but the main idea is that rook a6, rook a8 is coming.
Oh wow, so queen c3, king b8, bishop d5, and that can happen. Queen c3, this is a really nice move. And can black try then king d7? Do they have to?
But that means that your long castle was a very bad move if you do go for king d7.
Now bishop d5 doesn't work anymore, I guess, because queen can take it and king will hide somewhere, maybe even on e6.
Or e6, f5.
So after queen c7, it's not a checkmate, but maybe now white can do all the things we were talking about, maybe even this long castle or queen a5, taking the d5 square under control. Maybe now long castle is reasonable as well, with the king on d7 just to bring the rook there. Queen a5, yeah, that seems to be good. But queen c3 maybe has to be played, or...
Queen c3 is very logical, because main idea for the black is to play d5, and we simply get away with the queen from this, with the tempo, from the main threat of our opponent.
Yeah, but you know what makes this a bit more difficult is, I guess, that when Jonas was going for this position, before long castle, queen c3 was never an option. So sometimes when you are playing a position, you have some of those ideas, like we had long castle, queen a5, you have all those ideas and they kind of stay as your ideas. And now there is a big change. Long castle was played and queen c3 is only now suddenly a move to consider. So sometimes it's not so easy to switch. But queen c3 seems to be a crashing move. Is there anything else? I was still considering c4, but I don't like that it closes our bishop, just to prepare against d5.
Yes, c4.
So
I don't think we managed to stop d5 with it though.
and yeah, it doesn't even prepare against d5. Yeah, no, that's bad. And now black suddenly has this pawn mass in the center that is just going like an avalanche against our pieces. So queen c3, but is there any other continuation that is good here?
Queen g4 doesn't
can
make
try
so
the
much
moves.
sense. No, yeah, that doesn't make much
Queen
sense.
a5, we've already checked. d5 was good, right?
If we don't manage to get the bishop in the game or exchange it and d5 comes, I think that black is good. So that's why it is all about very, very direct continuations right now.
14 minutes on the clock for Jonas Baum, so he still has time. He should be able to find queen c3. Something is played. What was played?
Queen c3 on the board.
Queen c3 on the board. Very impressive. Well done.
And king d7 instantly answered. So he noticed the bishop d5.
And that seems to be just too much. Even though black has an extra exchange, the king is in the center. Black doesn't manage to get this d5 move on the board. Let's see if long castle also is winning. Queen a5, we've seen its winning move. Long castle keeps a huge advantage, winning position
a
as
lot,
well.
a lot of winning moves in this position. This is not only the only move anymore. Here, white has plenty of options how to continue. And what's interesting, it's not only an exchange. It is a rook and a pawn for a bishop. But again, this it's not important what is the piece. It's important what the piece can do in the current position. And the rooks, look at them. They do nothing. While the bishop controls so many squares, so many diagonals. These bishops are, like, if you combine the number of squares that bishops are controlling and attacking and what the rooks are actually doing, then it becomes very obvious that they are useless. Okay, queen d3 played, same idea. So we have these ideas, this is looking to this side. So yeah, just simply taking control of the light squares and probably just securing a winning advantage.
Very cool sacrifice once again by Jonas Baumia, just giving so much material for just domination on the light squares. Wow, that, and look at this bishop on e7. It's also so sad. We just shows that, as Tom's mentioned, it's not about how many pieces you have, it's about what they can do, because rooks maybe wouldn't be still so bad. If there was a knight on e7, everything changes. The knight can actually defend the f5, d5, c6 squares, but here the bishop can not do anything. It's playing a different game. So let's go back to the leaderboards. Let's see board number 1. I think we should take a look at this clash of two players with a perfect score. Jakub Pajekin against Krishna Rohit. Let's take a look. Board number 1. We've seen white slightly pushing from the very start of the game, but we had a lot of changes, and now is it still, I guess it's still equal.
It is still very, very equal, but white has to watch out, I think, sometimes that they would not get into some wrong exchange of the knight against the bishop and some maybe unpleasant pawn endgames because of the double pawns, but probably that is all too far into my imagination that there could be some problems, and all the pawns are so locked down, and yeah, so it should be relatively drawish. White is hoping to get active with the king somewhere, so this is one thing that black is gonna try to prevent somewhere from happening now as well. Like if we go king d4, probably we can just see an exchange on c4 and a drawish pawn endgame after move like b6, controlling the c5 square, and now the king can just go back and forth, and even b5 can be just, as you see, just immediately losing as well for white, because now we have a problem. We have a weakness on a5, and we can never play b4 because the pawn is just gonna keep running, and those doubled pawns on the b file is the same good as one pawn, and as we know, pawn endgame with an extra pawn most of the time is just winning. So black is very comfortable here, and any moves like b3 automatically again puts a pawn on the light square. So even if you would have some hopes to somewhere get active with a king, then later on the bishop is gonna attack the b3 pawn, so there will be a target, there will be something to win. But my estimate is that they actually at this moment are just gonna go back and forth for a little bit and agree on a draw on this very, very situation. I think white is not even gonna risk going for a pawn endgame.
Yeah, so white was pushing before. We had a position of an isolated pawn, but it exchanged, and it seems that black managed to be like really solid in this game. He didn't give anything for free, and just defended slightly. It wasn't the worst, it was just maybe unpleasant due to this worse pawn structure, but he was unaffected, and most likely we'll see a draw. And combined with the fact that on board 2 it seems that we have a likely draw as well, we could not have, or not. Is it a likely draw? You looked at me.
Yes, that is very, very likely draw, and if one thing is clear there, that it's for sure that player with black pieces on board 2 is not winning.
Yeah, so let's see board 2. Let's take a look at the players and at the position, because on board 1 and 2 we had only players with the perfect score, and if they finish in a draw, that means we will not have anyone with 5 out of 5 after this round.
But we would have a very, very big group of players with 4.5 out of 5.
And that means everything is wide open for the winners. We are about to, or we basically already crossed halfway of the tournament. There are 9 rounds here in this event, so now it's round 5. After this one, we are past the halfway, but wide open situation among the leaders. So exciting, because GMs are catching up, but international masters is right there. Some FMs, I'm not sure, maybe a couple of them also. So everything can still happen. Remember that there is one more round today in the afternoon, in a few hours. So let's see, we have this end game which has equal material. White has a passed pawn on c4, but this pawn just simply doesn't matter.
Yeah, so white is just hoping that black is gonna lose their cool and will try to force a draw somewhere and thus give some actual chances, but all you have to do here with black, I think, is just wait it out, because white can over progress. The rook is tied down to defense of the c4 pawn, and what is interesting about this pawn structure is that even if we exchanged these 3 pawns for a pawn on c4, it's still a draw. So it just means that there are like no objective chances, like how to win it.
That's a very good point. Yes, position with f2 and h2 pawn with king of the black there is indeed a draw despite 2 pawns. So yes.
But of course we don't need to come to that in any way. But what could be some hope from the white side is, okay, king f4 was played, maybe something like c5, you know, king here, king coming here, and then that, I don't know, we can try to go for some great pawn endgame in some scenario where the black runs to take this pawn and we get active with our king, but I don't believe it can happen at all here, and I think that king d5 is also just a very, very simple draw here, and even if you just go here, wonder, is the pawn endgame also not a complete draw, because we are just in time to get the king to e7? No, that is not a complete draw anymore.
I guess king g5.
Oh, we managed to get to this classical, yeah. So this is actually when we get the king to h6, tying down to the h7 here. That is that is beautifully winning pawn endgame actually for white. But yeah, black hasn't how to go for it, but maybe he can hope for these kind of tricks.
Yeah, but this is a very important point, because when you have a rook endgame, you actually need to be able to evaluate what is the potential pawn's endgame evaluation and outcome. So those are the questions that players ask themselves, and this is why it's always very important to remember about the basics again. So pawn endgames are super important, because when you have different endgames, like rook endgames or bishop endgames, they often can transpose, and even if you don't see it on the board, all those variations, they need to be calculated to know that, for example, I cannot go for this endgame, so I have to find a different way. But I think maybe black could simply put the rook on c5 first. Isn't that the most simple?
But now it is white's move, so white can actually put the pawn.
White can already play.
Yeah, but here we can also just put the rook on c6, for example, yeah. Yeah, but here you can, here you can reach the situation where you are kind of putting yourself in some imaginary tsutswang, and you're starting to get afraid of some things. Of course, you can play some moves like rook h6, and you're still completely safe, attacking the weakness, and in the lines of c6, just using the king to run for the pawn and give up this one, attacking this one, and it's all should be completely safe. But it's because, as we mentioned, with the rook on the board, if you just get rid of the c pawn, it is a theoretical draw all the time, but you don't want to. Like, when you have had a game with equal material entire time, even though it's a drawish endgame, you don't feel like going for an endgame without a pawn. And we're sure that Zheng is gonna be doing all he can to actually find some chances. We saw that yesterday, how creative he is at finding the last resort in position, the last trick. So maybe the time is gonna be running a little bit lower, and he will figure out some clever rook endgame trick where black will need to be precise. But
Yeah, what we are referring to yesterday, Zhang went for a position without a knight. He had two pawns for this knight, and he managed to create some very interesting issues, practical issues for his opponent, despite not having a piece on the board. I mean, there are two rooks, but yeah, he didn't have the knight, and he managed to win in a very spectacular way. So he is very creative of creating problems. Most likely this should be a draw. Most likely it will be, and as Tom's mentioned before, Joseph Kirel is the person who now has a perfect score. It's hard to imagine black winning here, even if we get really creative. So yeah, most likely we will not have anyone with a perfect score. In the meantime, there is quite a big development on board 3, where we have the top seed of the tournament playing. So I think we could take a look on board 3. Jakub Seman is playing Teodoru, and it seems that the top seed is just taking over the game, and he's sacrificed an exchange as well for the time being, but it seems that his sacrifice is also working out great for him.
Yes, but the position is very, very interesting, especially for time travel, because the king will be drawn back to rather passive square. But I think there is...
Oh wait, no, I might have confused the colors. So no, it is Jakub Seman that sacrificed, but yeah, it maybe is not enough. But he's trying to push the pawns and the king back. So yeah, it's very interesting, but most likely it's holding for Teodoru. But you see him here very deeply focused on the camera. We have a nice zoom in on the board. Jakub Seman playing with the pawn. Most players do it, actually. They play with the pieces when they are thinking. Do you do it as well?
Oh yeah, I think I am very happy whenever some pawns get exchanged, because then you can shuffle it around. Sometimes it feels very wrong when there are all the pawns on the board and you just don't have anything to work with.
You want to steal from your opponent. Here they cannot do it, not from opponent, but from the board next to you. Here they have very nice boards on the stage. Each board is separately, so yeah, they cannot take from the
There are
sideboard.
actually sometimes some interesting situations, and some players like to keep those pawns in the hands also when they're walking around the playing hall. They're just walking and shuffling the pawns, and I know some cases when it goes as far as the player forgetting to return the pawn after a game and just going home with the pawn in a pocket.
Okay, that's nice.
But yeah, I mean, apparently the last move was a blunder. Apparently the position here was before f6, totally still fine, and the sacrifice was actually very interesting and kind of working out here for black. But the last move was for white.
Let's just show what happened. So the sacrifice was rook takes on d6 the knight. Just taking the knight. The knight was controlling the f5 square, which was the idea that white wants to push the pawn forward. But for now, with the knight on the board, black will simply... Oh no, wait, black cannot take it. There's also bishop on c2. I missed the bishop on c2.
Probably we'll just retreat. And there will be no real threat.
But Nicholas doesn't look happy. Like, you see him on the camera, look, he seems like he would have just blundered something very big.
Well, it's a very complicated position, because if we go to the position which we have right now on the board, the very big issue is that the bishop is what is holding the rook on a3. So the position is like barely holding together, and very likely next white move is to attack the bishop. And then we have to decide where we can safely retreat with it. and to do it in a way that our king also would not lose control over the d7 and that we would have some chances to get rook in the game from h8. But I think this position's evaluation could be completely different if the pawn was not on g3 but actually on h4. If the pawn was on h4, I think white would be doing great here. But the problem is that the pawn is on g3 and rook actually can get out just using the h4 resource.
But can't he just go king to d8 now, and after rook d1 just play king c7?
Oh wow. And after rook d6?
Ah, the rook is hanging. Ah, right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so
that was my point. What I meant, that's what we have to solve the problems with. And but it should be fine. I mean, something like bishop b4, it's hard to imagine who can attack it next. And these are not playing anyways. You cannot strengthen your attack in any way.
Yeah, especially bishop from c2. You would like to put it on f1, on h3, and then it's more fun. But here, unfortunately, we won't be able to do it.
And h4 is going to come in the next move. But I think in this moment he missed his chance. No, it's not taking. I thought that he can take and play rook f6, attacking here and here. But apparently that is also not the case. I guess it's just not enough. Rook a8 will be good enough, and if you take on g6 we just swap off the rooks and we are feeling very comfortable with our extra exchange.
So what else? Maybe he needed to start with rook d1 to put pressure on the bishop on d6, and now f6 is a threat, and there is this saying in chess that threat is more dangerous than the execution. So start with rook d1, and then king doesn't have, like, f6. If king goes away, then bishop simply is hanging. Bishop b4, and now f6 will basically transpose. So now we need something smart. f6 transposes after. Maybe bishop b6? Bishop b6 to cut the king from the d8 square. It's not...
But don't think we need the d8 square. I could just go h4 and king would be safe also on e8 in this position.
What else? What else? What else? It says?
Perhaps something like knight b1 with an idea a3, and we cannot go bishop d6. We don't have enough squares because f6 is gonna come again.
And if rook moves away, we go a3, and since bishop has to go to a5, Storms mentioned d6 square is not safe. And bishop c5.
And we finally have one active piece.
And this is better way. Wow, but that's complicated.
Yeah, that is very hard to make a decision like this on the board to really... I mean, that is just a positional exchange sacrifice. This is like the best way to describe what is happening here in the board. I mean, we use this term kind of often, but usually it is still connected with some tactics. But this would be just 100% just positionally sacrificing an exchange just to activate our piece, and wow, that is crazy.
And we have this exchange sacrifice in a different game as well of Jonas Baum against Inian Pa. This is having quite a development. I think white has to be still winning. Maybe we can take a look in a moment, but for now we had king e8, rook d1, bishop f8 actually played by Nicolas. Is that still fine for black? He's trying to keep control of the diagonal from f8 to a3, because that's where the rook is standing. That's where bishop from e3 for white could jump to c5, so it seems to be still fine. Bishop f2 played by Jakub Saman, I guess stopping h4.
Yeah, just not wanting to let the rook out, but all our pieces are working. Okay, now I think we take care of the rook from a3, and then we're just gonna work to get all the rest of the pieces out of there as well. And this has to be winning just for black. I mean, we could just go for this, get the bishop to g4, take the control of the d file, or exchange the rooks, and then we'll be free to move our bishop from f8, and we can get the rook out of the corner a move later. So yeah, I think it's good. I think black is now feeling very, very safe, since all of the white pieces are super slow. They don't have this, like, they don't have this coordination. Like nothing is really doing anything special on the board right now. So it's just not coming together. This whole idea. It looks nice. It looks visually nice because king is on a8, bishop is on f8, rook is on h8. You know, bishop is still tied down to defense on d7. This is also kind of barely hanging there, and it's moved 32. And it's funny to see the three pieces on their starting squares, and the evaluation of the position actually being that it's the side with the pieces on the starting square is winning almost.
Yeah, in the meantime, I think a draw is gonna be agreed very soon on both board 1 and 2. They seem to be simplifying the positions, so as we expected, this is one of the most exciting games. And board number 6, Jonas Baum. Let me quickly take a look. Do you want to switch the game? Do you want to stay by this?
So what was the play? Does the move king d8? Yes, I think we can switch the switch. Looks like Teodoro is gonna he's gonna take the point here, and
there is still some fight left, but maybe we can come back to it in still a moment if there will be some development. So let's take a look back at Jonas Baum versus Painian, board number 6. If there is a game over there could be a resignation actually quite soon, I think. So let's see, board number 6, very exciting game right from the beginning, and beautiful sacrifice, positional sacrifice for the light squares of the rook for the bishop, and I think now he is delivering, or is there some complication? Actually, there is a complication, yeah?
I guess something got missed. Somehow white played it too simple, I guess, and now black is creating some sort of a blockade, some sort of a fortress situation.
And black, what about, okay, so yeah, a lot of development. Now this pawn is on b7, but the queens are not on the board. He actually, white exchanged the queens. I was thinking whether it was necessary, but I guess it seemed to be winning for him. Now rook a8 was already played, yeah? I was thinking b4, b5 to put bishop on c6.
Yeah, I think he was worried about some counter-game possibilities against his king, connected with bishop joining the game, rook g1 coming as a threat, and e3 also sometimes. Because if bishop g5 comes, then we have to watch out from checkmating ideas already against us.
Oh no, then there will not be resignation. I somehow thought that there has to be a winning position, but probably this is what he also thought. He's down to 5 minutes with white pieces trying to win this position, but it's still not game over. Rook a8 is played, that is preventing black from playing rook g1, yeah? Or can black actually go rook g1 and bishop g5?
Yeah, I think that's preventing that, but the problem with it could be coming from the side that we don't have a way to progress, because bishop a7 can be comfortably met by king c7, and taking an exchange does not give any progress for us, and there are a lot of pawns here, a lot of pawns on an f-file actually. I didn't notice that we have 3 pawns on an f-file here for black, and for now this one pawn on f2 is holding it all together, but if we could get rid of it, those
something like bishop h4 played, and in the future, if ever white actually exchanges bishop from b6, there could be some issues with e3, but for now it's not an issue. Isn't there b4 here after some moves? I think this way to progress maybe is b4, b5, no? And bishop c6.
So it would be rook a7, and okay, we would need to make a move with the black here. What about bishop f6? Just attacking this, and if b4, I'm gonna pick up the pawn.
Yeah, that seems to be good, unfortunately. Attacking the pawn. Yeah, what can white do? How do we progress as white?
Just play b3.
Bishop c3, king d1. It's still not a checkmate because rook g1, then king still has a square on c2, so that will not be an issue for white. Wow, what a complicated position.
Yeah, I think if we just go back a moment, it was looking fantastic. Even just here around here, it just looks great, and I think that he just played it too ambitious for the pawn. I mean, I would just take no, not taking r7. This doesn't work. Apparently, I thought it does work, but maybe you get some concrete counter game.
Maybe rook f6. No, bishop f6, but then bishop e6.
Yeah, that is great. So there is something clever that black can do here.
So maybe rook f1, threatening f4 or something like this, but that seems like a very good practical decision as well by white. Maybe this, I don't know, I like b4, b5, bishop c6, rook d7 as a threat, and kind of additional idea, except the passed pawn is also a mating net.
Yeah, because the pawn on b6 is very, very useful for us, as the bishop is now alive, and the bishop from e3 is still there.
And rook on a7 is very dangerous as well, right?
Exactly, we have a rook, and after we play b7, we very, very limit abilities for a rook. We very much limit the threats that we have. That means that our opponent can think about more things. For example, now he can never consider even probably moving bishop away to f6 or something, because rook f7 coming would be just a complete disaster immediately. So yeah, just had to keep it there. Still needed some cold-blooded approach in this situation there. And now once after rook a8, black I think is feeling more comfortable, because the pawn is dangerous on b7, but this is like one threat. One threat right now is only the one pawn, and we should have some chances to deal with it.
But still very dangerous position. But yeah, now it can already turn around as well. So anything can happen here. Anything can happen here. Yeah, we already have a lot of results, of course. Most of the games are almost finished or finished as well. But for sure we will not have anyone with a perfect score, and a lot of players with 4.5 out of 5. Remember that we have one more round today in a couple of hours, so the players that are still playing, they will have a very difficult situation, not that much time to prepare and rest and get lunch before the next round. Yeah, we were mentioning 2 days ago on a double round day that difficult choice for some of the players. Do you get a good lunch? Do you get a good prep? Both so important. So those players that are already finished for sure are very happy, because the next round is starting in exactly 2 hours and 40 minutes, so that's still enough time, but the time is running out very quickly.
I don't think all of the players are happy, though. Those who did manage to lose already, I doubt that they're very happy, but yes. But maybe the motivation to have a good lunch is good enough to be happy also with a loss sometimes.
Sometimes it's worth it, you know. At least you do it quickly, and yeah, and you have something. You have this lunch.
Yeah, it's probably the worst thing that can happen in a double round day is to play a 120 move game and to lose it in some end game. You have no lunch, no preparation, and you still lost the game.
The mood is not there as well. Sometimes, you know, it's still tricky when you play a very long game and you're pushing. Like maybe here that's I don't want to jinx it, but maybe in this game for white could happen. And anyway, if you push a very long time, but you don't manage to get a full point, then it's a draw. So sometimes draw can be as painful as a loss as well, and you are very disappointed, and you quickly have to get over it and remember that there is a next round, and it's very tricky mentally to reorganize yourself, because you have to forget about whatever happened in the previous one, and you have to get ready mentally for the next one, which is starting in just a couple of hours.
Yeah, and actually looking at the results of this round, for the There probably won't be anybody with 100% anymore, but the leader group is still gonna be rather small. So those who had now 4 points out of 4, they make a draw, they'll have 4.5, but in the group with 3.5 points, there won't be that many resultative games. So we expect that Nicolas Teodoro should be able to convert his game and join the leaders with 4.5 points. And then possibly Jonas Baum will still manage to convert this position that we have.
But he took on b8, that might be a mistake. Although maybe
What was Black's move?
bishop f6, what we were considering, and now b3 was expected, but rook b8 seems to be giving up the advantage. Now he can force most likely a drawish endgame, because once again we will reach the position with different color bishops. White has a light square color bishop and black has a dark square color bishop, but it seems to be a draw.
But you have to watch out, there are 2 passers. Maybe he's still hoping that he can win it, but Black should have enough counter game because of the bishop on h4. This is so important square. Maybe if the pawn was on h5, there would actually be chances, but bishop h4 is gonna defend and attack in the same time. And yeah, this is... Wow, that is a crazy decision. He just decided to go for a draw, I think, in this moment already.
Yeah, wow. Oh, that was such an exciting sacrifice. Promising position, winning according to the eval bar, according to the variations that we were considering. But yeah, this can still go either way, although now most likely draw is going to happen. We will sum up this game after the break, after the big break. So we will tell you what happened when we start commentary of the next round. Now we will be wrapping up, so we can just sum up what happened. And we will be back with you in around 3 hours, 20 minutes, if I can count.
Yeah, so after this round, we expect that among leaders will be Jakob Pajakan, Krishna and Rohit, who make a draw on the board 1. We expect the board number 2 to finish with a draw as well between Chongsheng Zheng and Joseph Girel, so meaning Joseph Girel moving to 4.5 points, Chongsheng Zheng having half a point less. And then Nicolas Teodoro might win his game. He's having a better position right now against Jakub Seaman. And then we have a lot of draws, probably draw also on the board that we have now on the screen. And so the leaders might be joined only by Khan Durak, who won his game against Dion Krivenko. And maybe on board 9 there will be a win by Wyam with Yarti, who is right now trying to convert the rook endgame pawn up, which could be a draw, could be a win for him, but he's 20 minutes up on the clock in this rook endgame, so it is very likely that he also joins the leaders. But the leader group is still gonna be super small. As it happens in tournaments like this, every win is super valuable because the players are matched up very closely and there are a lot of draws, and those who can actually catch their rhythm on winning, they have always a good chance to really run away from the pack, or even to catch up with the rest, because draws are very likely results.
Absolutely, yes. Let's see what's going to happen after the big break and coming back for round 6. In just a couple of hours, we will let you know everything. We'll see all the tables, and we will have another exciting round in this tournament. As you see, so many turnarounds are happening in every single game, in every single round. We have such an exciting things happening, and yeah, and we could also see some more mistakes because players will be tired after the morning round, which is not great for them, but it's exciting for us to follow as well. So yeah, let's go all for a small rest and break, and stay tuned for the next round number 6 of the Riga Technical University Open.
Yeah, see you everybody.